job begins where most advisors stop. Saving money is great, but how do you spend it without risk in retirement? Welcome to Every Day is Saturday with Brad Gotto and Matt Stahl, partners and private wealth managers at Fiat Wealth Management. In this podcast, we aim to broaden your knowledge about the financial world we live in today and make the boring and complex financial decisions fun, informative, and educational. Join us on this journey where Brad and Matt will explore different strategies on how to spend your money without guilt and have peace of mind knowing you are spending it the optimal way in retirement.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Every Day is Saturday. My name is Matt Stahl. I'm here with my partner, Brad Gotto, and we're super excited to be back with you here today. We're in part 3 of our 3-part series on the 3 biggest risks to retirement. So we're excited to jump into that. But before we do that, what's up, man?
I'm good. I know you didn't ask if I'm, how I am.
No, I don't care how
what's
you
up,
are.
but I'm going to take that as how are you doing? I'm really good. In fact, you and I have an opportunity later this week to step out of the office for a couple of days and really work on our business to try to be better for our families. And I really do love the opportunities that we have to step out of the office and kind of work on the business. And so we've got that coming up, and I'm just looking forward to that.
That was my bud this morning, what I'm looking forward to.
Well, now you have to say that because I said it. So
I know. Well, you stole the thunder, man. What else am I supposed to say? I'm looking forward to Halloween.
Okay.
I want you to talk about something else. You have a book coming up. You have a book coming up. You haven't talked about it at all.
Well, it's not done yet. 2021 has been an interesting year for a lot of reasons, but it's also been a year that I've spent trying to write a book, and it's a much more daunting process than I thought it would be. Even though I have help, I thought if I had help, it would be super simple. It's not, but it's been a lot of fun, very educational process for me and what it takes. It makes me appreciate authors. Even ones that are using writers and stuff like that. It's still a ton of work. It's coming. The manuscript is done. It's in editing, and then all these other little decisions that have to be made. So I'm hoping that come first quarter of 2022, I'll be a published author.
Awesome. Does it have a name?
It's all about parenting. No. Yes, it does. It does have a name. It's called Spending Money and Having Fun, Your Practical Guide to a Fearless Retirement.
The first quarter of 2022.
That's the idea. See, that's why I don't want to talk about it, because don't hold me to that, because you just never really know how these things.
Don't put me in a box.
The manuscript is done. The book is written, technically, it's just not in book format yet. And the editing thing, man, I just am not. Some people like write an email and they'll go back and read the email 3 times and just make sure there's no typos, do all that kind of stuff. That is not me. I'm the guy that writes the email, hits send. Yeah.
I know. I edit some of your stuff sometimes.
I know. Yeah. So who knows? The editing process could take forever. But yeah, it's coming. I'm excited about it. Really, Matt, a little bit of a labor of love to kind of get this idea out to people that retirement is not all about numbers. It has to do a lot with behavior. And so the very practical book. It's going to be a very simple read. You should be able, if you're one of those voracious readers, you can kind of sit down and read a simple book in a day. That's going to be possible with this book. And it's meant to be light and fun, but it really starts with kind of the behavioral side of this whole thing we call retirement. Because at the end of the day, the longer we do this, Matt, the more I realize, we got out of training at Ameriprise and we're all like, jacked up because we know all these words that other people don't know and new vernacular, and you feel really smart. And the longer we do this, the more I realize none of that matters. What matters is the behavior and the way the clients feel about money, what drives them as far as what's fun to them, what they seek out in life, and really where their fears are at. Because everybody has different fears in life. And ultimately, we get frozen in place when we don't address those. And so we're talking about these 3 biggest risks to retirement, Matt. Good transition here.
Yeah.
Whether that, in these last 2 episodes, we talked about sequence of returns risk, which I would say is not a fear most people have, because it's not a fear that most people know is out there. They don't know what they don't know. And so that's kind of an exposing a monster in a closet that they didn't even know existed. Withdrawal rate risk is a question a lot of people have. We discovered that we talked about that in the last episode, but then we get to this last one. And this is one that people get, at least conceptually, which is longevity. They just don't know how long they're going to live. And wouldn't this be so much easier, Matt? This whole idea of, okay, I got a pile of money. How do I stretch this out till the end date? If we just knew the answer to that question. But anyway, to wrap up the book,
that would answer a lot of things, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Behavior drives our decisions. And so the book talks a lot about that. So anyway, thanks for bringing it up. Now you've held my feet to the fire. Now
I put you on the spot.
Hey
man, you put me on the spot last time. It's my turn to do the same to you.
Fair enough.
So as Brad said, we're talking about longevity risk. This is part 3 and our final episode on the 3 biggest risks to retirement. So at first blush, this might not seem like as important as the first 2 episodes, but as you dig a little bit further in, you realize this might be the most important of all of them.
Yeah, we teased at the end of the last episode, Matt, that people, it's funny how so much thought goes into the day you're going to retire, right? And all the math is wrong. Okay, can I do it? Can I not do it? Like, and what's going on in my life? And it's just this huge decision. And some people are on a runway with this decision for years before that happens. I've got clients that are in their 40s that are already talking about the day this is going to happen for them. When people start to kind of build this plan out in their mind, how much time, energy, and effort do they put into when it's supposed to end, right? The end of your retirement or the eternal dirt nap, or however you want to, however you want to put this.
So you mentioned something to me earlier today about, thinking about a run. You just ran a race recently. So when you think about a runner, and if you're going to go tell that runner,
well, I did run a race, and now he's putting me on the spot again because I signed up for a half marathon.
That was not intentional.
I did. I know what you're doing there. I signed up for a half marathon. I had a buddy flying in from New York, wanted me to run with him. I was like, okay, I had a couple of months to train. Let's just say it didn't happen. And so we get there, and there's also
the training didn't happen.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So we get there, and there's also a 5K going on. I was like, I'm just gonna run the 5K because I don't have it in me to get this done. So the analogy I like to use with this is what you brought up, is this idea of running. And if you're a runner and you're trying to prepare for a race and trying to plan for a race, what's the one thing that matters the most?
How far are you going?
How long's the race? What am I training for? Right? Is it a sprint? Am I running a quarter mile? Or a mile or something like that? Is it a 5K? Is it a 10K? Or are we talking like distance here? Like half marathon, maybe it's an ultra marathon, one of those crazies that runs 50 to 100 miles at a time or something like that. Obviously, the distance of the race is probably the largest factor in how you're going to choose to train for that race and ultimately run the race. Right. What pace are you going to go when you're in the race? What is it going to look like? How are you going to take care of your body during the race and all that kind of stuff. So retirement's the same thing. How long's the race? Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? Is it 20 years? Is it 30 years? And as you would probably imagine, Matt, if it's a 5-year race versus a 30-year race, the recommendations are going to be far, far different.
Right. So is longevity the same thing as life expectancy?
No. And this is the biggest kind of problem we run into when we have this conversation with people. Our biggest misunderstanding, I guess, is probably a better way to put that.
Yeah.
Is that life expectancy and longevity are completely different. Life expectancy, by definition, is the coin flip. Heads or tails, 50-50. If your life expectancy, as an example, if somebody tells you, Matt and I were messing with this earlier today. We were both doing, in preparation for this episode, we were both looking up our own life expectancies. And for the listeners, if you don't know us that well, we're both right around the age of 40. And we found out if you just go off of SSA, Social Security Administration's website, and you look up your life expectancy, Matt and I are both right at that tipping point of being mountain climbers versus descenders as it relates to longevity. I am on the front side of the mountain, although I'm about ready to summit. I'm 39 years and so many months into my life, and I'm supposedly, according to SSA.gov, I've got 41 years left. Matt's a year older than me, technically 13 months older than me, and he summited. He's on his way back down, and the feeling of that kind of hit us. We're like, geez, man, I don't feel old,
kind of weird.
But for the government to tell me that it's all downhill from here. It was a little daunting. Well, then we got into a more detailed calculator.
I could not accept that. I could not accept that answer. So
yeah. So Matt goes out and does even more research to try to prove his hypotheses and create whatever narrative he wanted to create for himself. What was the name of the website you found?
I think it's called liveto100.com.
Yeah. So he goes and takes this longevity test. That's like, I don't know, what, 30 questions, maybe?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Something around
that you have to
30,
answer. Yeah. And it's everything from how often are you drinking alcohol to what's your eating habits look like? What do your sleeping habits look like? How do you handle stress in your life? What am I missing? There was some other stuff in there.
Do you eat bologna?
Do you eat bologna? Yeah. And for those of you that know Matt and I, well, this isn't going to surprise you. According to SSA.gov, I got more life left than Matt. According to liveto100.com, Matt's got me by 15 years.
It's the
you now know which one of us eats bologna.
It's the dental hygiene.
Yeah. Come on, man. I'm on video. My teeth look pretty good. Yeah. So anyway, longevity is one of those things where life expectancy is the coin flip, heads or tails, 50-50 chance, right? 50% chance you live to that date, or 50% chance you live beyond that date. And so if you're meeting with an advisor, you're building out your financial plan on your own, and you're trying to kind of plan for the end of the race and figure out how long your race is. If you plan to life expectancy, there's a 50% chance you planned for a long enough race. If you plan to life expectancy, there's a 50% chance your race is a lot longer, or potentially at least incrementally longer than you planned for. And of course, the lack of training you may have in your plan that could lead to an issue. Longevity is discussing life beyond life expectancy and looking at different statistics of, okay, what are the chances that I might live beyond my life expectancy? Or like Matt, what did that calculator tell you? You're going to live to be
108.
108. We found out today.
I'm not so sure about that one.
But that's an Old Testament character all of a sudden. 108. I hope you got a lot of money saved.
Thanks for the segue.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about longevity is it just compounds everything else, right? So let's think about, we talked about sequence of returns risk. We talked about withdrawal rate risk. There's other risks out there beyond just these three, but using those two as an example, longevity risk just compounds that even more. Like with sequence of returns risk, we're going to be on that roller coaster that much longer. So more opportunity to have the ups and the downs. Withdrawal rate risk, as we talked about last time, that fluctuates also. So just even longer to have that. And then we have inflation. So, if I have the same amount of money today that I do 50 years from now, and I don't do anything with it and don't keep up with inflation, I'm in a rough spot. What else is out there that would compound that?
Policy, right? Economic policy, Congress is a big risk to all of us, and what they choose to do with the things around us. I mean, longevity compounds every other risk that you have, because the longer you live, the more chance you have of insert whatever you want to insert there. Right. Now, what the irony in all that, Matt, is it's the risk we all want.
Right. Yeah.
Right. I mean, not all.
Most.
The vast majority of us aren't walking around hoping we're peeling out tomorrow or soon. We all want to live long, healthy lives, which means we're all asking for this risk. We want it. And so because we want it, Matt, and we want this for the families we work with. Ideally, we want all of our families to live whatever life they want to live, to be healthy when they're doing it, to have fun while they're doing it, and all these things. So what's the solution? Because when you look at statistics, Matt, if you plan beyond, before we get to the solution, let me give a little bit more context. We plan beyond life expectancy, and you're a 60-year-old couple, and we'll look at it from a couple's perspective. If you're married, 60 years old, you also have to think about like a joint life expectancy, because obviously you don't want all the income to shut off when the first spouse passes away. You want everything to last until spouse number 2 passes away. Joint life expectancy for a married couple age 60 is 94. 94, 50-50 chance one of the two of them is still alive at age 94, still needing income to sustain that household. Okay. So again, in that statistic, married couple, one of the spouses has passed away, but the other one's still alive. 50-50 chance, that's 94. 25% chance, it's age 98. Okay. So if we plan to 98, there's a 75% chance we plan for a long enough race, 25% chance there's still some race left. Age, I think it's 103, Matt, is the 5% chance. So 5% chance one of the two of them still alive at 103, and a 95% chance that we plan for a long enough race if we go all the way out to age 103. But so if you're that couple that's age 60 and you're lucky enough to retire that early in life, that's a long time. Yeah. That's a long time that we have to be thinking about. So as we begin to unpack that and the possibility of people having to live on their monies for decades in retirement, depending on how many decades there are, what's the solution? What do we start to do?
Yeah. Before I jump into that, I just want to point one more thing out. How often, because you bring up one spouse living that long. So if one passes away in their early 80s, the other one lives to 94, how often does that surviving spouse want to take a pay cut?
Well, I can tell you in our experience, Matt, we're over.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
I haven't had one that said, you know what, I want to take I just lost the love of my life and I want to live on less money.
Right.
Which is interesting because when we were trained out of the CFP manual and when you take classes at like the American College, for financial advisors, the industry standard, at least as I've been educated, is 75% of living expenses. In other words, the surviving spouse takes a 25% pay cut. Just haven't seen it.
We know in practice that is not the case. Not even close. The solutions. So we're presenting all these problems. Let's look at solutions. Some of this is going to go back to what we talked about in episode 1 and episode 2. So when we talked about sequence of returns, as part of our planning process here, we look at what's called income stability ratio. That's going to put some of the stuff to the test. So let's make this a bumpy ride and let's make it long. Yeah. Let's stretch this out and see what it does. So that's one piece of it. What we talked about last time is thinking about silos. I say silos, you say buckets, but thinking about, when are we going to spend this money? So if we're retiring at 60 and we're expecting to live 94 plus, possibly, that's money we might not spend for 34 years plus. Yeah. So that goes back to the time tax and investment diversification. So creating those buckets of when we plan to spend this money. And as part of that process, it's going to tell us, do we have enough to make this last? Can we ride out the ups and downs? Now, in some instances, we'll run into people that we would call them self-insured from a longevity standpoint. I mean, how many times we've run into people that we've told them they could go bury their money in the backyard, pull out a certain amount of money each year, and they're going to be just fine, barring the financial system collapsing, right? They're going to be just fine.
As long as the sun rises and sets, right?
Right. In that instance, they're self-insured from longevity, from withdrawal rate risk, from sequence of returns risk. In most cases, that's not true. In a lot of cases, folks are not self-insured. So in those instances, we're going to look at those buckets. We're going to create a strategy. And then as part of that, sometimes guaranteed income ends up being a portion of that. Yeah. So, and that can be going to an insurance company and creating a stream of income that we're not able to outlive. And I'm treading in your territory. That's where you're an expert. So,
well, yeah. And at the end of the day, you mentioned some big words there, income stability ratio. That's just a fancy way for us to figure out, with longevity. One of the things you have to figure out, and every retiree, regardless if you're planning for longevity and try to figure out how long your race is, how much of your income that you need or want in retirement is coming from guaranteed buckets, and how much of it are you going to pick up the tab for with non-guaranteed buckets. Yep. And that really is three things. There's really only three things that fit in the guarantee. Well, four, you can make an argument. It's your Social Security paycheck, any pensions that you may or may not have, cash, and income streams from insurance companies, also known as annuities. That's it. And you may hate all of those things. You may love all of those things. That's not the point. The point is, if you want income that you can't outlive, no matter how long the race is, those are your options. Now, obviously there's problems and, benefits and pros and cons, I guess I should say, to all of those things. Social Security, there's pros and cons to that, pensions, annuities, cash. This isn't the episode for that. Mm-hmm. But you should figure that out, because the amount of your income coming from these sources is really going to help stave off longevity, because they're all guaranteed until you die. And so Social Security kind of maximization analysis, figuring out based on longevity in your life, how old you are, when you should take Social Security, how that overlays with the rest of your investments. That's important. because the
Totally.
later you take it, the bigger that payment is. And that can have a really significant impact on longevity. So if we're really planning on a long race for you, delaying Social Security may be a really important decision for you, or delaying a pension payment. If there's a significant gap in age between, if you're a married couple and there's a significant gap in age or significant gap in longevity in the families or just something like that, and figuring out how to take Social Security might affect your surviving spouse. How to take that pension may affect your surviving spouse. All of that stuff matters in planning for longevity. That's all on that kind of that non-risk side that you discussed with this income stability ratio, as we like to call it. The other side, it's do you have it? We ask that question all the time. Do you have it? Are you diversified from an investment perspective, tax perspective, and time perspective? If you don't have it, then you could be in, something like longevity could be a larger risk to you than it needs to be. And lastly, and this sounds like a ridiculous solution when I'm going to verbalize this, the listeners may be like, well, duh, Brad. But I brought this up at the beginning that people don't do this. Even though it seems really obvious, it doesn't ever happen. Let's sit down and talk about it. When do you think your retirement's going to end? How long do you think this race is going to be? What does your family health history look like? What does your health look like today? And couple all of that. Do you eat bologna? Knocks 15 years off your life, evidently. So if you're like me and you don't want to live to 108 and you don't eat bologna, you should eat bologna. Oh, man. One of the questions was, do you eat bagels/chips? What? Bagels and chips? That's the category? That's what knocks 18 years off my life? Oh, man. I felt... Now, of all people that I had to side-by-side that test with, you're probably the worst one. Because you work out constantly, you eat like an Adonis. Like 108. You probably broke their system. That's probably the oldest anybody's ever had. So anyway, we'll make all of you take this test, and then we can tell you what to eat and what not to eat to dial into whatever age you want to die at.
Don't eat bologna, whatever you do.
Yeah. I think chicken nuggets was on there too, wasn't it?
Those hot dogs,
chicken nuggets and bologna. Can you imagine what would be happen if they put Spam on there? Now we're probably gonna get sued by Spam. Bottom line is we gotta have a real practical conversation about the end of the race. And it's not a fun conversation, which is why nobody has it, right? Nobody wants to sit down and think about but at the end of the day, none of us have beat this yet. It's going to happen. And the best thing you can possibly do is think about not just plan for when you're going to start this race, but how you're going to get all the way through it and ultimately when it's going to finish.
Awesome.
Anything you want to add to that?
You tied a bow on. I don't know what else to say.
Even though I eat bologna, sometimes I get things right.
Even though you eat bologna.
I actually don't. I can't remember the last time I had bologna. They still make bologna, don't they?
I think so. Yeah.
What's the one? What's the bologna with the green olives in it? What's that called? You know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Mortadella. It's mortadella.
Oh, there you go. That's what it's called. As always, guys, thanks so much for listening to Every Day is Saturday, whether you eat bologna or not. We love you for listening. If you want to reach out to us here at Fiat, you can find us on our website, www.fiatwm.com. Please subscribe to our podcast if you haven't done so already. And if you don't want to miss an episode, we'd also love it if you'd share it with your friends and your family. I'm Brad Gotto, guys. I'm here with my partner, Matt Stahl. Again, thank you so much for joining, and we will see all of you next Saturday.
But we don't record the podcast on Saturday.
When are we going to kill this joke? See you next time, guys.
Thank you for listening to Every Day is Saturday. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Fiat Wealth Management or Foundation's investment advisors. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.
Investment advisory services offered through Foundations Investment Advisors, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.